This is a pantograph, better known as a scissor mech in the haunt circles, the decorating circles. How you doing? This is Mike from Nightmare on Maple Ave, and this is the reason I'm doing this video. I don't do a lot of videos, but I will do a video to help out a fellow member of the group. It's a little time consuming, and it's about a month before Halloween 2018, and the shop is just full of props that I'm trying to get out the door, get ready for the display. I got my spider, got Bebo, my dog, got my baby spiders, but basically getting ready for Halloween. Too many things to do, but I got a personal message from one of our members that says he's having a hard time, building a scissor mech, and wanted me to help him out. And you really can't put things in words, so I thought I'd do a little video to help him make a fabrication template, basically to make a scissor mech, and that's what this video is going to be about. Basically, making a template to make sections of a scissor mech. Now basically a scissor mech is a mechanism that takes a small amount of linear motion and turns it into a larger amount of linear motion. Pretty much that's all it does. A little bit of linear motion into a large amount of linear motion. I kind of show you on this prop exactly what I mean by taking a little bit of linear motion. Here we have a 4-inch cylinder connected to this scissor mechanism, and basically when this cylinder extends its 4 inches, I get 2.5 feet of motion out of it. So the prop with 4 inches of actuation will get 2.5 feet of actuation. That's basically all a scissor mech does. As you can see, my shop is a mess, so I thought I'd do a little video. Basically, this won't be specific to any prop, except for the dog prop you actually just saw. That has a 10-inch scissor mech section, and just for purposes here, the references. When I talk about a scissor mech section, that is a scissor mech. This is a scissor mech section. It contains 2 pieces. This is one I made out of wood. Usually I start a project, I'll start making something out of wood until I transfer over to steel or aluminum. We'll talk about materials to choose for your scissor mech in a second. But basically I'm just going to stand here and talk and work at the same time. Hopefully by the time I'm done, our member will know exactly what to do. So basically let me set this camera up in a tripod, and we'll get started. Now once again, this is a scissor mech. I made this in the past for a prop, and I just kind of never used it and kind of just laid around, so it's kind of perfect for this this application. Hope you can see that. Basically it's got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 sections that make up this scissor mech. And again, I could take a little bit of linear motion and turn it into a large amount of linear motion. This one's made out of aluminum. Materials you choose to make a scissor mech are up to you. The way I make props is I look around in my shop, see what I got laying around, and then I just start building. And this is basically, when I built this one, I had some solid aluminum laying around, and that's what I decided to use that day. As you can see, it's got writing on the side, and I actually fabricated this flat stock, aluminum flat stock, out of a larger aluminum angle. But the materials you could choose. I would never build a scissor mech out of wood. It's just not done. You can if it's something really light, but wood's gonna expand and contract. It's gonna break. A lot of popular materials to build a scissor mech out of is this is one I use the most. Actually, I shouldn't say that. I use this is 3/4 inch by 3/4 inch steel square stock. This is 1/2 inch by 1/2 inch steel stock. It's usually 1/16 of an inch or an 1/8 of an inch thick, depending on which one you can get. Some people make them out of flat stock. This is flat bar. You know, this one is actually, this is 3/4 by 1/8 of an inch thick. I tend to stay away from flat stock. Flat stock has a tendency when your scissor mech is extended. If you make this out of flat stock, it has a tendency to want to flap left and right. It'll stay up and down. It'll stay pretty solid, but once it gets out and extended with flat stock, it'll have a tendency to move back and forth. Now, most of the most everything you make it out of is going to have some play. In the home workshop, you're not going to be able to drill these holes exactly perfect. You have in this case, I have a 1/4 inch. Basically, I'm going to call it the 1/4 inch bolts that make up a center bolt and the pivot bolt. This is what I call the center bolt. These are pivot bolts. That's what I'm going to call them. You know, it's another thing. Everybody has their own opinion on making these things, how they make them, what they make them out of. I get it. This is the way I make them. I've been haunting for 18 years, and I learn more and more every year from you know, basically all the haunt groups I'm in. The Facebook haunt groups have been really helpful to make you learn and take you to the next step of making a prop. But you can see there's play in these. I mean, you're never going to get them perfect. I'm not really going to tell you how to. I'll put one of these together, but this is basically, this video is to show you how to make a pattern or a template to make these sections. So again, once you decide on what type of material you're going to use, in this case I'm going to be using wood because I don't have any material to waste on this video. So I basically prepared some wood stock. Now the secret to this, I shouldn't say the secret, the key is to make sure that each one of these sections are identical. I mean, identical. Again, you're going to have a little slop and play in the screw nuts and bolts and the screws. I get it, but you want these things to be identical. If these hole dimensions are off by just a hair, it may work until it starts to close, and then it won't close. It'll stay sort of like that, and that's the complaint I have now from the member. His mechanism works, but when he gets to this point, it's not closing. And the only thing I can think of is that his holes are not drilled perfect, and their sections are not identical. So we're going to solve that problem now, and this is the way I've done it in the past. So like I said, I got 8 pieces, so 2 pieces are going to make up a section. So that'll be a 4-section mechanism. Again, I'm using what I'm calling rectangle. I don't know if you can see that. Basically, this is going to be the sides that I'm going to be working with. This is basically, like I said, this is wood, and this is just for experimental and video purposes. Once this is all done, I'm going to toss this in the trash. You know, I may keep it just for future video reference, but we'll see what we can do. But basically, here we got 8 pieces of wood, basically 5/8 by 3/8 inch thick, and every one of them, and this is the key, 10 inches long, exactly 10 inches long. If you're going to build a template, these sections have to be identical, 10 inches long. Now basically what you want to do is you want to take one of them to start. Put the others to the side because you only need to work with one of them at this time. So basically what you want to do is, and I'm not going to assume, I'm just going to assume that you guys have a little bit of technical and mechanical abilities to take things to the next step. I don't know if I can walk you through everything, but basically what you want to do is it doesn't matter what your length is. My length here is 10 inches. If yours is 20 inches, it's rarely, unless it's a huge prop, very heavy prop, you're not really going to see sections that are longer, you know, in length. longer in length from here to here that it's bigger than 16 inches or 2 feet. I mean, it's rare. I don't see it in any videos. I don't see it in any YouTube tutorials. But again, this is the one I'm using. This is 10 inches. So I'm going to find the exact center. In this case, it's 5 inches. Now this is the key. This one is exactly the key. And finding the center from the long end to the other long end. And that gives me 5 inches, of course. So I put that on 0. And I got a mark at 5 inches. Now you have to find your lateral width dimension. Find the center of it. So basically, like I said, I've already marked this one. I have a 5/8 width. So half 5/8 is 5/16. Or yeah, 5/16. And I've marked that center. Now what I've done here is I actually put a hole punch here in this to help guide my first drill bit, my first drilling straight through. And kind of that's it for now. Now you want to start on your template. What you want for a template is basically a piece of wood. In this case, mine is 16.5, but you want a piece of wood that's at least 1.5 times the size of your section. Here's your section, here's my section. So I got a 10-inch piece of wood plus 5 inches plus a little bit for your stops, and we'll show you that in a second. So base piece of wood, you want your width long enough. Basically I'm going to be using a drill press, so I need something that's large enough so I can clamp my template so it doesn't move down to my drill press. This can also be done with a handheld drill, and when I'm all done doing it on the drill press, I'll show you how to do one with a handheld drill. It's not that difficult, but again, if you're making 1 or 2 of these, if you're making 1 or 2 sections, you can just sit there and mark each hole. Forgo the template, mark each hole, and rely on your exactness, and then drill them out. If you're making a lot, it's just so much easier to make these identical. If they're identical, in the end, your scissor mech will close and will open smoothly. Back to the template. So you need a base piece of base timber. In this place, I got a 1/2 inch by 16.5 by 5 inch cabinet grade plywood. It's flat. It's got a straight edge. You need a couple pieces of wood, scrap wood, doesn't matter. I got holes drilled in these because I'm going to screw this together. And then you need a long piece of wood as what we're going to call the backstop. This is the backstop. Your backstop needs to have a straight edge. All right, you're basically going to mount your backstop onto your piece of wood with room on each end for your stop. I'm going to call this the center stop because where we put our piece against here, this is where we're going to drill our center hole every time. And I'll explain that more in a second. So basically what you want to do is first put down your first stop. In this case I'm just going to screw this in. A couple screws in there. You can nail it down however you want to do it. I can't tell you how to do everything. But you can make this template out of steel if you want. If you want to weld the stops down, that's fine. That's a little overkill, but you could also make a template that's a lot larger than this, that's adjustable. That you put your stop on, your back stop, and then this one fits this other stop, which is going to be your pivot hole stop. Basically, you can move it back and forth. In this case, I'm just making a standard template that's going to basically do 10-inch sections, and that's it. Basically, mount your backstop along your straight edge. Just make sure it's not, you got a 90-degree angle, nice corner here. Again, I'm just going to screw this down. I can do a couple screws. I'm going to do 3 screws in this one just to hold it tight. You really don't want it to move. The key is you don't want any of this to move once you start drilling. You drill your first section and your template moves, or your backstop moves, or your stops move, you just screwed up the rest of the pieces that you're going to drill. All right. So now we have our center hole stop, and I'm going to call this CS. So wherever I put that, I'm going to drill a hole. Now, take your piece of take your section that you started with. You got your center line here. Put it against your center stop and transfer your center mark exactly to your backstop. Now I got a mark on the backstop. I'll make that more pronounced by using a straight edge and sharp pencil. Better sharp pencil here. And that is my center hole. Right. So at this point now you want to set your pivot hole stop. So now you have to determine where you want your pivot hole. Where do you want your pivot hole, which is this end hole? You don't want to go at the edge. You want to go a little bit in. Basically, you want to come a little bit in. My rule of thumb is, in the case where you use a 1/4 inch bolt for your pivot bolts and your center bolt, if you use a 1/4 inch bolt, you want to make the center of your hole basically a 3/8 of an inch in. That's my rule of thumb. That leaves me a 1/4 inch of steel left here to wear out over time. But normally steel and the bolts, it very rarely wears out. It wears out a little bit. You get a little play as time goes on. So basically what I'll do is I'll make a mark at 3/8 from that edge, and that'll be the center of my pivot hole for both ends. You don't have to mark both ends. You can. It's just a waste of time. But with a template, you don't have to mark each and every one. So there's my center line. I mean my pivot line. So basically what I'll do now is I'll straighten that pivot line so I can transfer that line to the backstop. I'll place this on the backstop and I'll slide it over, just to see that, to where the center line, where the drill is actually going to do the drilling. And that's always going to be in this spot. You're never going to move your template. You're never going to, it's always going to be in this spot. That's where the drill is going to come down. That's a hand drill no matter what. And again, I'll show you that in a bit. So make sure that's perfectly aligned. And I'm going to make sure it's perfectly aligned. So basically now I'm going to take the other little scrap of piece of wood and I'm going to put it at the end to stop this from sliding to the left. And that'll be my pivot stop. So when I slide the piece of wood to this end, I'll drill my center holes. When I slide it to this stop, I'm going to drill my pivot holes on both sides. Notice I didn't mark the other side. So like I said, let's line that up perfectly. Put our center stop at the edge where the wood is. Put a couple of screws in there, and then I'll kind of give you a close-up shot of that. Again, before you button it down, make sure you can use a clamp or whatever, just use your hand so nothing moves. Template is the key. Once you get your template built, the rest is a breeze. I mean, it really is when you're not making a video, it really is a 5-minute job to make a template. There we go. There's the template. Again, you can make this any size you want. Here's your center stop. When you want to drill the hole here, you slide your section to the center stop, pull down on your drill press or your hand drill, make your center hole in each one. When you want to make your pivot hole on this end, just slide it to the other end. You do this for each and every section, they'll be identical. So basically, before we go over to the drill press, what you want to do is you want to prepare all of your pieces by doing one thing. This is the only time you're going to mark every piece. You can mark it with a pencil. I got a Sharpie here somewhere, but basically you want to put them all on the side and mark. It doesn't matter. It could be, you can mark them on this side. Just make sure they're all marked on the same side. On the other side of where you're going to drill. You're going to be drilling basically on this flat surface, but the reason I'm doing this is that you, whenever you drill these, to avoid mistakes drilling holes into locations laterally this way, you want to make sure that each and every one of these, before you start drilling, the marks you made are against the backstop. No matter what you're drilling, the marks on these should always be against the backstop. So even if this is off a little bit when you first drill this hole, if it's off a little bit this way, each and every one of them will be off a little bit this way. These will still be identical. The hole might be off center, but they'll still be identical. The important distances is from the center line of your center bolt to the center line of your pivot bolt on this end and the center line of your pivot bolt on this end. They have to be perfect. They can't be off from one section to another. So basically we can get this over to the drill press and kind of start drilling, and once you do that, it's quick. So let me turn the camera off. We'll reset the camera over by the drill press and start all over again. Alright, here we are at the drill press now. I hope you can see this. Let's see. Yeah, I'm pretty sure you can see it. I really don't want to do this video over again. Again, you could do this with a hand drill. I have a drill press. I have many tools, I've acquired over the years that help me build my props. But this a drill press seems to be one of the most helpful and useful tools that I have. Basically, I'm going to use a 1/4 inch bolt for this scissor mech. So I got a 1/4 inch. It's not the best drill bit, but a 1/4 inch drill bit mounted in my drill press here. I got 2 clamps ready to clamp my template, scissor mech template down to the table. I have my 8 sections ready to be drilled. They all have a marking on one side. Make sure these markings go against your backstop again. So I'm just going to take the first one that I marked up. Again, this first hole that you drill is the most important one. If it's off, the rest of them are off. Just start your first one all. If this hole is off, just start it all over again. So throw this one out and start with a new one. So basically, before you put your template down, you want to find out where that hole is. Lower your drill press or your hand drill so that you can drill that 1/4 inch hole perfectly center, both laterally and long, along that line. Once you have that, hold your template down. Hopefully I can do this without having my template move. And again, this is another one of those things where you want to measure twice, cut once. In this case, it's going to be check twice and drill once. So basically, no matter how you do it, I'm doing it with vice clamps here, but once you have it your template clamped down to your table, then you check again before you even start drilling. You know, if you're off a little bit, everything's going to be off. So and if you're off a little bit, don't unclamp it. You know, you could use a hammer. Let me get a hammer. Seems that you know, when I clamped it down, I'm off a little bit, so I don't want to unclamp it. I just want to give it a few taps with a hammer. Right, and I'm tapping the template and moving it over to the left, just a hair, to get that perfectly centered. Looks like I'm good. So now, again, to start drilling, this one's the most important one. This may be a little sketchy when I start drilling. This is wood. I don't have anything to clamp my pieces down, so I'm going to rely on holding them down with my hand. So they may jump a little bit. Again, if you do this with steel, it's going to be a little better, and you might want to, it won't spin if it catches because you have it against the backstop, but it might pop up a little bit. But you have your drill speed fine, and you have your piece clamped down. You won't have any problems. I don't clamp anything down. I like to live dangerously. Alright, so let's get the drill bit started and drill our first hole. Now I'm just going to take my time. I'll start, kind of take a look at it, make sure I'm down the center. My drill speed's a little slow, but I don't care. I'll drill through and make my first hole. I'll pull the shavings away from the backstop. You want to keep the backstop and your stop areas clear. If your sawdust or your metal shavings, build up against your backstop, it may pull this. You might not be able to put this piece of wood completely against your backstop, and as it creeps out, your holes are going to be off. So you want to keep your template clean after each one. So basically, see what I did? I drilled straight through it. My hole's a little off center a little bit. It's not going to kill me if it's off center this way. But they have to be perfect this way. Alright, and in a second we'll get them perfect. But you can see as I drilled through and I made a little hole in my mark, so that gives me another little reference of where exactly my hole is. I normally keep the nozzles of my air gun for my compressor right by my compressor, so right by my template and my drill press, so I can just give it a quick shot and blow everything away. Well, let's drill our first. We drilled our center hole. Now let's drill our first pivot hole point. We slide it to the pivot stop. Well, you can see that. Let's see if you can see that. Let me move that camera over a little bit. I'm taking my piece, my section. Black mark still against the backstop, and I slide it all the way over to where that piece of wood stops. Now when I drill, it should drill right where I made my mark, which is exactly what it's doing. Keep it pushed against the backstop. There I have my first hole. Now, basically what I want to do is, I'm off a little bit. The drill bits don't like drill through wood perfectly. Normally you want to drill a pilot hole. But for this purpose, again, you're going to be doing it out of metal. So now you want to drill your other pivot hole. See, I don't have a marking, but I just turn it over. And again, to make sure the holes are in the same place, you want to turn it over and make sure your black marks are against your backstop. Slide it over to your pivot stop where you can't move, hold it down, drill your hole. Right now I have one section. This is one half of a scissor mechanism section with 3 holes in it. Now, the center of this hole is the same distance to the center of this hole. The center of the center hole is the same distance as these 2 holes to the center of this hole. I put this one to the side. This one's ready to go. Now I'm going to drill the other 6. I'm going to leave one of these sections to show you how to do it with a standard drill. Basically, I'm going to drill the rest of these. Clean the spot. Marks against the backstop. Drill your hole. Slide it down to your stop. Drill your hole. Flip it over. Marks against the backstop. Drill your hole. there's 7 sections with holes in. The last one I'll do with a drill press, so I'll kind of show you how to, or a hand drill. I'll show you how to do that in a second. Yeah, so here we are back at the bench. Hopefully you can see this. Let me spin the camera around so I can see what you're seeing here. Took my template off my drill press. We can forget about the drill press for now. Gonna show you how to basically drill these sections out without a drill press, using basically a hand drill. I have a the DeWalt, hand drill, cordless. Anything you want to use. I can't teach you everything. You guys got to do what you got. Work with what you have. So I got my template. There's no changes in the template. The backstop. You basically have to add something else. You have to add a guide for your drill, for your hand drill. So basically what you have to do is, before you start, and again I'm starting all over to kind of give you a guide of how to do this with a hand drill, but I'm not going to drill all 8 of these sections with a hand drill. I'm just going to I'm going to drill one. I kind of have to show you how to set it up. So basically, once you have your first one marked, and again, I'm just going to assume, let's just assume that this one's marked, the center both this way and long ways. Just assume you have a center. You basically have to get your 1/4-inch drill bit and drill, manually drill out your center hole. Again, that one's very important. Make sure it's exactly in the center there, right? Again, this is assuming you're going to drill out 10 sections with a hand drill. So what you're going to want to do is, again, put your stock against your center stop. Now you're going to want to basically make up. You can make this out of. I made this out of aluminum, but you're going to want to make a guide with a 1/4-inch hole in it and a couple of holes to screw it or nail it to your backstop, to kind of guide your drill in the same location every time. So basically, again, you have a center hole in there already. Put your drill through. Put your guide on there. Hold your guide in place. I don't know if you can see that. I got my drill. Got my drill through. See, I already screwed up. My black line should be against the backstop. There we go. Now everything's perfect. My stock that my section is against the backstop. My drill bit is through the center hole. Get a couple of screws and lock that in place. Now this is kind of imperative that nothing moves at this point. You want against the backstop, your drill bit straight up and down. Put in your guide. Hopefully your backstop doesn't split, because if it splits it's going to widen and push your stock away. Pull your drill bit out, pull this out. Now basically you have a guide for your hand drill to drill your hole at this location every time, no matter where you move your stock. It's probably best to, I'm not going to do it, but clamp this down to your table, screw it down to your table so it doesn't move your template anyway. So I'm going to drill out this very last one. Again, assume this is your first one out of 10, 11, 12, however many sections you're making. Take your marks, put it against your backstop, put it against your center stop. Make sure everything's tight. Put your drill in your drill bit in your drill. Go through your guide, nice and easy. Drill your hole. Now you have a hole perfectly down the center of that piece of wood. Now do the same. You have to do the same thing I just did on a drill press. Slide it over to the pivot hole stop. Make sure everything's tight against the fence, tight against your pivot hole stop. Drill your hole. Clean your template edges. If you get a lot of stuff, get a lot of shavings, wood shavings, or most likely metal shavings between your backstop here and your stock, when you go to put it against it, the more stuff you get stuffed in there, you won't be against your backstop. And when you go to drill your hole, you can see this. Basically, you'll have a gap that's going to be created by all the crap that gets in there. Your shavings are going to get in there. You're going to have a gap, and your hole's going to be off. So you want to keep that template clean all the time. So basically, what we're going to do, like I said, we're going to flip this back over, and you're going to drill your other side. Marks against the backstop, clean backstop. Stock against your pivot hole. Hold everything tight. Drill your hole. Do this for all of your scissor sections, and they'll all be identical. So basically, I've got 4 sections of a scissor mechanism drilled and ready to be assembled. And we'll kind of do that in the next section. Again, I'm not going to make a complete prop here, but just want to show you how the template works to make things identical, and I'll kind of, in a second, I'll kind of prove that these are identical by doing the assembly. Alright, we got our sections all drilled out. We got 4 sections. It's going to give me a 4-section scissor mechanism. So basically, we're going to just, I'm not going to assemble this whole thing with, I'll just put some bolts and screws through it. I'm not going to put nuts and washers and everything on there. That's stuff you can learn on YouTube. Again, I'll give you the basics of how I do things. But if you drilled everything perfectly using that template, this should go together perfectly. And when you're done, you'll have a complete working scissor mechanism. For this, I'm going to just use these little simple bolts. What I normally do, what I try to do, if you can get them, is this is a screw with a full thread. From one end to the other is a full thread. I really try not to use these when working with steel, especially hollow steel. Over the years of your prop moving back and forth and being actuated and extended and retracted, the threads on here they sort of act like a file in your holes and kind of file it down. I try to use what I call, somebody else might call it something else. I call it a shoulder bolt or a shoulder screw, where the part, and these are hard to find for the exact measurements of your or thicknesses of your scissor mech, but basically the part that goes through the center of your sections is smooth, so it can't eat away at your center hole. So basically, if I was making this, I would use this bolt, put that through, put a lock nut on that end, and you would have two smooth areas for that scissor mech to spin. I don't know if you can see it. I pulled that apart. You got a smooth area in there. So that, now, a lot of people do things differently. If you have perfectly straight stock, some people put a washer between down the middle of all these. I never do. I just grease my scissor mechs up pretty good once I have them tightened to the proper distance and torque. But like I said, you could do what you want. It's up to you. Put washers between them. Don't put washers between them. I can't teach you everything. I mean, I could guide you, but you got to have, when making these props, you got to have some sort of mechanical abilities, some technical abilities, the ability to think out of the box sometimes, where you have to change something. Sometimes you make a mistake and you don't want to build the whole thing over again. Now let me start putting this thing together while we talk. So I'm just going to basically take all my sections and throw a screw down the center of each one. And again, I don't normally use these bolts, but it's what I got. I'm not going out to buy more. Basically, everything you need to build a scissor mech can be, including nuts and bolts, screws, washers. Everything you need can be bought at your local hardware store. Usually, a local hardware store now is usually a Lowe's or a Home Depot. You get your steel stock there. You're not going to get this aluminum stock at Home Depot. That's not going to happen. Again, I made this out of stuff I had laying around. I got off my job site. All right, so we got 4 sections here with the bolts going through them. So now you want an assembly. Take 2 sections. Doesn't matter where these marks are, but you can, if you want to, make things easier. Make sure they're all in the same direction. That might make things a little easier, being that all of these pieces are identical. You want to connect this one, the upper one of this section, to the lower one of this section, so they bypass each other. And again, I'm not going to put nuts in here. So you take that one and put it in that one. Once you have two sections together with 4 bolts, you got 1, 2, 3, 4 bolts, 2 center bolts, 2 pivot bolts that hold these two sections together. They should open smoothly and they should close completely. That assures me that all of these bolts in these sections are identical. These sections are identical to each other. Now basically just keep your assembly just continues. Top one goes into the lower one, and the lower one, the top one of this section goes into the lower one of that section. Again, this kind of sort of common sense. When you start putting this together, it'll just come together. Your screws, again, once you get the third section in, check it. It's smooth and it closes completely. If it does it here, it's going to do it once you have it completely assembled on your prop. Take your fourth one, follow the same steps, and it doesn't matter how many you have, it's the same process over and over again, just adding section to section to section to section. And this is wood, so it's just a little tight. Again, now I got my 4 sections together, all my identical pieces. Again, this is wood. I have a couple of little gaps here. It's not going to be perfect, but it'll be a lot better if you do it in aluminum or solid aluminum. Don't ever make a scissor mech out of hollow aluminum. A lot of people do. It all depends on the weight of the prop that you're going to put at the end, the decoration. You put a lot of weight on one end of this this section. You put a lot of weight as you extend. These points are just going to start wearing out in the hollow aluminum unless you use bushings. Again, there's ways to make it work, but it's just another step and an additional cost. Alright, so like I said, here you have, using the template, I have a perfectly good working scissor mechanism. This is wood. I'm not going to use it for anything. I'll just use it for these purposes. I hope you kind of learned something. I'm not the greatest at making videos. I definitely can make props better than I can make videos. I'll try to do some editing to put this together. I'm not great at the computer crap. So if you're looking for something from like Steven Spielberg with a lot of good editing and transitions and fancy special effects in the beginning and the end, it ain't gonna happen. Hopefully I could make some better videos in the future. Actually kind of do a tutorial on actually making a prop from start to finish, and I can give you some measurements and a materials list. Again, I do what I can to help out our members. I've actually I've made parts for 1 or 2 of our members, and actually at no cost I just mailed them the part and gave them the part. I actually just gave a scissor mechanism that from one of my props to a gentleman from North Carolina, nice guy. Was learning how to do this, so I was gonna kind of trash the mechanism, so I decided to just give it to him. I met him in Virginia when I was on vacation, and gave him the prop. He was real thankful. Another one of our members needed a motor connection for a motor. It was off size. It was a metric axle on the motor, so instead of kind of trying to tell him how to do it, and he didn't have the tools, I guess, I just made him the connection piece and I mailed it to him. It wasn't a lot of money. It wasn't it didn't put me in the poorhouse. So like I said, I try to do what I can to help out the members. I give you all the answers I can, but sometimes we get I get messages on my message board that they just can't be answered. People get a video of my props, and they ask me, how did you make that? And it's really no easy way to explain that in words and typing on a computer. So I think videos are the way to go, and hopefully I could do more in the future. See you in the group.